The CGA Tour, a podcast unlike any other. Now your host, Calvin Alexander.
Welcome back to the latest episode of the CGA Tour podcast. As always here, I'm your host, Calvin Glen Alexander. And on tonight's podcast, we're going to be doing it a little differently, where I'm going to open the show. So if you're listening or watching this on YouTube, I guess, you can see a little different perspective here. Try to upgrade the audio and video levels the best we can at the show. I don't know, I said we, it's clearly me. But with that being said, want to talk about Oklahoma State football here to lead off the show. Have not talked about Oklahoma State football for the past couple of weeks, and honestly, it's because I kind of knew last Saturday was coming in the back of my head. I didn't feel great about it. Did a preview of the Big 12 and also of Oklahoma State football this season with Jake Carlson a little bit earlier this year, maybe about a month ago now or a little bit less. And Jake and I talked through the entire schedule. We went through wins and losses. We went through, hey, are we going to have a chance to win this game or not? What's it going to look like? What do we think the thought process going into the game is? A bunch of different stuff. And Jake and I kind of came up with the same deal. Jake said 6-6, 7-5. I said, much more of the hopeful list, bright side here, going forward with the Oklahoma State fandom bias. You can see I'm wearing an orange shirt. I went with, I think Oklahoma State's got a chance here to go 8-4. And after losing against South Alabama on Saturday, looking ahead to the at Iowa State Cyclones game this weekend, seeing that Gundy's going to play three quarterbacks again, keep rotating around, seeing only Gordon only get 5 touches in the last game where we scored 7 points against a football team that did not have a program when Gundy became a head coach at OSU. So all of this being said here, put into context, wanted to go back through. And the biggest thing that I think about with Oklahoma State is like how fortunate we are to have Gundy for this many years, how fortunate we have this much success as an Oklahoma State program, because I'm an Oklahoma State fan my entire life, and I think I've said that thousands, millions of times, went to Oklahoma State as well. Biggest supporter you're going to know. And before Gundy becomes head coach of Oklahoma State, the two biggest wins were in back-to-back years that I can remember at least. 02 and 03, Les Miles, beating OU, winning Bedlam. And before then, I'm not really sure what history there is to speak of before we get to the 80s when we had Barry Sanders and Thurman Thomas. But those years, it wasn't like, oh my gosh, we're setting world records. It was still losing OU, still not doing the greatest as a program, and not being held in high regard. And then in between there in 1945, I'm not sure that the Oklahoma State fandom goes back too much, honestly, of a lot of people who are going to be listening to this podcast at least. So I'm not going to include that history in there just for context, just as a heads up. I do think what I'm getting at here is that fortunate to have Gundy as the head coach of Oklahoma State for my entire memory, basically. But it's coming to an end. And there's a couple reasons why here, which I'm going to lay out. Gundy has taken Oklahoma State to a record-setting amount of bowl games in a row. Last year's game against Wisconsin was not one that we all are going to love to rewatch, etc. The previous games before then that season are not too much fun. Last, I say, fun game was the Texas game last year, which happened about midway through the season. And since midway through last season up until this week, it's been kind of like, what are we doing? What are we doing as a program? What are we doing football-wise? What's the goal here? Because Mike Gundy is a quarterback. And I know I've been talking several different pathways here, so I'll try to kind of get to a point here and sum it up. But Mike Gundy's a former quarterback, former offensive coordinator at OSU as well. I would think the offense would be better, just talent-wise. I would think that the talent offensively at the quarterback position itself would be something that Gundy would regard highly. That would be his, keystone, his mark of excellence, if you think about it, as far as, like, why are we going to hire Mike Gundy? Oh, because he always has the quarterback position down. And going back, yeah, you know what? Got Mason Rudolph, great quarterback for many years, led us to a couple of 10-win seasons. Then before then, you've got, Brandon Whedon, right? And there's not a guy in between there, but there were only like 2 years in between there, if that. So, we're talking about, Brandon Whedon, awesome quarterback. Before then, Zach Robinson. And now we're got Spencer Sanders for the past couple of years when he's been healthy. And now we're at this three-headed monster, which I don't know how that comes to be. I don't know how, as Gundy, you would think, being a quarterback previously who would hold his hat high on being a quarterback guru of sorts, not at all like we see of Sean McVay and Brian Daboll in the NFL, like quarterback whisperers, but just like Gundy would have the quarterback position figured out every single year. And that's just not what we have going right now. I don't know if Garrett Rangel, who was a 3 or 4 star prospect, depending on which side you look at, has just not panned out at all as hoped, and that all Oklahoma State fans hoped that Shane Illingworth or the coaching system hoped Shane Illingworth would have been here this season to play. I think this would have been the final season of college eligibility, but hey, he was backing up Spencer Sanders for a while. He ended up transferring away from the program. I just don't know what the contingency plan at quarterback was going into this season, or really even going into the last. Like, were we going to get one of these transfer guys like Brennan Armstrong, who ended up not transferring to Oklahoma State, but was in the portal? We did get Alan Bowman, who was a third stringer at Michigan, and then Michigan's second and third string quarterbacks will transfer away, Bowman being the third string to Oklahoma State. But Bowman at Michigan didn't do anything. He had a couple passes there, maybe. And before then, we're talking about him playing in 2017 for Texas Tech, which a lot of people know he lit up Oklahoma State in Boone Pickens Stadium, but he got injured through the season and then wasn't the starter going forward. So then he transferred to Michigan for maybe vying for a job there, but also Michigan's bringing in ultra-talented guys at quarterback. So not sure what he saw in going to Michigan as far as he's going to really have a chance to play and prove himself. But maybe he was promised something, and maybe he really thought he had a shot. I'm not going to knock him for that. But then he comes to Oklahoma State here, and he hasn't won the job out from a no-star prospect. That's just Gunner. Gunner might have had a star or two. He won 12 games for Oklahoma State as a senior, but he's a guy who had one D1 offer other than Oklahoma State. He's currently in contention for the quarterback's job to be the starter for Oklahoma State. Then you've got Garrett Rangel, who last year down the stretch didn't look great. This year so far has looked okay. Not bad. He's the guy I want to start for the record going forward for the rest of the season. And you've got Alan Bowman, who also hasn't looked super sharp, but I don't know what you're getting in all these three guys playing like a couple minutes here and there. I'd have much rather seen, let's have this guy be the starter. Let's have this guy be the starter for this game, and if it's not going well, then we'll turn to somebody else. But just as a starter week one, because the old adage is if you have 2 quarterbacks or more, you have none, really. You got one. One's all you need. So what I'm trying to sum up here is I don't know where Gundy really led us astray in the quarterback position. I'm confused by it. Defense has never been Oklahoma State's thing, just solely, except for the 2021 season. There have been good defensive teams. Glenn Spencer teams have been really, really good. There have been, there's the 2021 season where, we all wish we could have kept the defense coordinator there instead of going to Ohio State. But, Knowles was gone. Then there's Derek Mason, and then there's kind of a combination deal this year. But defense has not been something that Oklahoma State's held their hat on as a program really ever. Maybe besides the 2021 season, but that was not the plan going into it. That was a surprise, if anything, the year of the D, so to say. So I just don't know where the offense really kind of went. I don't know if it's offensive play calling either. I've looked into that. Thought maybe it's offensive play calling. Like maybe this is, just a bunch of play calling stuff. And it doesn't really look like Dunn's doing so much different than anyone else. So then I'm going to talk about talent. Like I'm going to go to talent. Okay. And with all due respect, just to my comments here just 2 seconds ago, I don't know that much about offensive schemes. So if there's a lot different of what Dunn's doing versus other guys, let me know. Like I would love to know that and love to get a breakdown of that. But to me, it's not like Dunn's doing something dumb in comparison, right? Like the offensive plays aren't great, but I don't know what a lot of offensive plays that are great look like when it just looks like to me it's talent. And it's really like couldn't keep Spencer Sanders healthy while he was at Oklahoma State for an entire season, except for 2021, where we went to the Big 12 Championship and then won the Fiesta Bowl. So now I'm going to talk about, now I'm going to talk about talent. And talent-wise, for the past 5 years, I should say, Oklahoma State has ranked in the 30s, 31 to 40, in that range in recruiting from 247sports.com. So there hasn't been like a mass flux here in talent as far as this team goes, besides guys transferring out this season. And that's the only thing I think of, is that a lot of the receivers that you would want at Oklahoma State transferred away this past season. And Shane Illingworth was the quarterback. Because otherwise, I'm scratching my head. Maybe there was another guy or two we thought we'd get in at quarterback, and that was what was going to save us for this year and make us look really good. Maybe Gundy says, hey, I want to give my son a good chance here, and Gunner, I want to give Alan Bowman, the grad transfer, a good chance as well, and I want to give Garrett Rangel a great chance, and all 3 of those guys are about as good as they can be, and they're all just real similar, but usually you go into a season like planning to have a quarterback like that guy. Usually the Alabama deal this year where they don't have like a confirmed starting quarterback for every single game until their 4th game of the season, that usually doesn't happen. It doesn't usually happen for Oklahoma State team that I can recall having like a quarterback battle going into camp for a while. It's been, basically if you want to sum up the Oklahoma State Gundy tenure, you can talk about 4 guys. You can talk about Zach Robinson, Brandon Weeden, Mason Rudolph, and Spencer Sanders, with a couple in there sprinkled in between. But you're talking about 4 guys over Gundy's 19 years at Oklahoma State. 18 if you don't want to include this season. So that's a pretty darn good success rate there at quarterback. Staying at the helm, starting and not having huge quarterback competitions going into camp every year. But I guess what I'm getting at is, man, this team could use some more talent. I'm wondering when the NIL deals, the transfer portal stuff will start catching up. Maybe that at the end of the day is really what this is that you lost guys in the transfer portal. Other guys came in. They were not the same as the guys going out. And heck, the offensive line could use some work. There's just not much else I can talk about from the aspect of why Oklahoma State looks so much different this year versus a year and a half ago, I want to say. Right, like if I go back to, there's the goal line play of 2021, and all we have to do is just get that final touchdown, where Jalen Warren doesn't play 1 second of the game, but you know what? All we need is just that touchdown at the very end there. We have, I think it was, 8 plays or so within the 1 yard line, and only came away with 3 points. Maybe 7 if I'm remembering correctly here. But this season will go down as one of the weirdest ones. I do hope some changes made offensively at the OC / head coaching job. I really do hope some changes made, because defensively, I'm not the defensive guy, but you already made that change this season. And Derek Mason, it seems like, left the program on his own terms and wanted to step away from coaching. But new guys were brought in, so let's see how that goes the rest of the season. So far, South Alabama, an FBS team, but a team that literally formed in 2009, scored 33 points on us. I'm not sure what to make of that. I'm not sure to make if that's really just poor performance defensively, or if they're good offensively and some fluky stuff is going on and the next several weeks will be good defensively. I'm not going to judge Brian Nardo off of 3 and Tim Duffy off of, I'm not going to charge Brian Nardo after 3 games. Tim Duffy's the offensive quarterbacks coach. But yeah, hope some changes made. Hope some better recruits come in. Hope some better transfer portal guys come in. Really love to see Rangel just start the whole game at Iowa State. Just give him the whole game, see what we got. And then if he's bad, you know what? Then we have a bye week, and it's Gunner and Bowman competing for that spot to start against K-State. That would be a perfect world to me here going forward for the rest of the season. With that being said, let's get to it. Let's bring on in the guests for this podcast. And thanks so much for listening so far. Welcome. So, Today's episode's going to be a little bit different. We're going to do those NFL questions still, but when I say we, it's really me, myself, and I for this one. We'll get Colton back on the next one. So I had this idea for a spotlight segment, which is red light, green light, yellow light. I would say red light, green light, go, but red light, green light, yellow light for NFL teams. We're 2 weeks into the season. We'll kind of try to do this as we get closer to the trade deadline. Yellow would be, hey, your team needs to make a trade. They're not all in. They're not all there together. Let's do something. Let's mix it up a little bit. Red light is, it's 2 games in, but you're already looking for 2024. And green light is, stay on track. Nothing's going wrong. You're all set and good to go. So, idea being, bring 3 teams each week to ask the other person about. I'm just going to bring up 3 teams that I'm thinking about right now, here off the top of my head. Rattle them off and go. This is recorded here on September 22nd. So I did see the Giants 49ers game last night. And spoiler alert, in case you haven't seen the score or watched it, 49ers won big, and it wasn't that close. So with that being said, who is the green light? Who is all good to go? Well, talking about those 49ers, I don't think there's much to be said here. Besides that, Brock Purdy, 49ers, they look good. Nick Bosa's getting the quarterbacks. You know, granted, the competition they faced so far, they faced the Rams. You know, it's probably been their toughest competition. I'm not going to make much of the Giants here at this point. The Giants have not had 3 easy games in a row. They haven't had 3 tough games either necessarily, because I'll get to the Dallas Cowboys here in just a moment. But I do think the Giants have probably had the toughest schedule to open up the season. Maybe I should backtrack that on a little bit. With that being said, how do you hold water in the boat? What are you taking on as the schedule here so far? The Giants, okay, you beat them. You killed them on Thursday night, 30-12 at home. But the Giants' only win on the season is a really tough, come all the way back against the Cardinals, who, they're the red light team. Spoiler alert, they're probably going to be the red light team for the rest of the season here. They're 0 whatever. They will continue to be 0 whatever. I think they're going for Caleb Williams in the draft, and that's all it is. They're not really trying to do much else. When you go back and if you just look at the game standings and the game summary here, the Cardinals were up on the Giants in the Week 2 game that they played in Phoenix, 20-0 going into halftime. Coming back out, the Giants scored 14 in the third quarter. The Cardinals still put up some points. They put up 8 in the third quarter. Then the Giants put up 17 points in the fourth quarter. That is a record for Week 2, unless the Denver Broncos and Washington Commanders had anything to say about it here. But that's what I'm going to say here. It's at the end of the day, like, Cardinals, they're in red light. They're trying to go for Kyler Murray to be traded and Caleb Williams next season. Hard for me to believe that they are already on another quarterback after the Josh Rosen debacle, especially after they signed Kyler Murray to a big extension not too long ago. I believe it was last season, and Kyler hasn't come back to hit the field this year yet. He's been dealing with some injuries. He's not a huge quarterback. Why not try to draft some offensive linemen to help out the Cardinal quarterback who's undersized? I don't know, Cardinals. Maybe you have been. You know, maybe you're trying to get the quarterback coach from Philly to come over so you can coach him up. Oh, wait, no, you got the defensive guy from Philly to come over, Jason Gannon. So the Cardinals are not going to be a defensive team, even though they're rumored to be drafting Caleb Williams first overall in the next draft and don't want to stick with the quarterback that's on their roster signed for 3 more seasons. Heck, what do I know? Anyways, here, the yellow light team. It's an NFC East team. It's not the Eagles. It's not the Commanders, touched on them. And it's definitely not the Giants. So who am I talking about? I'm talking about the Dallas Cowboys. I do think they're the yellow light team here. And the reason being is that I think they need to do something defensively to make a trade to get cornerback position. This is an easy fruit to pick from the tree here. This apple is the lowest hanging fruit you're going to hear on a Friday morning, recorded after Trayvon Diggs tears his ACL in practice on Thursday, September 21st, I believe. Maybe it was even Wednesday. So I do think the Cowboys need to shore up corner a little bit. They need to kind of figure out what they're doing there a little bit as well and get it going. The Cowboys, let's face it here, they do not have a tough game until we hit October. Their first 3 games of the season, at Giants in New Jersey, 40-0. Then Jets at home. Hey, you're not playing in Jersey this time. You're still playing the New York team. 30-10. Yeah, the combined win difference here is 60 points. But the Cowboys go play at Phoenix this weekend to go play at the Cardinals. If they lose this one, then there'll really be some type of, oh my gosh, are the Dallas Cowboys even real? Because, let's face it, the Giants, we don't know what to make of them so far this season. They good, they bad. It seems like they're not good. Seems like the early telltale sign would be that they're not good. They lost big on Thursday night after winning a tough game that shouldn't be tough against the Arizona Cardinals, especially if the Giants are going to make it to the playoffs. And then in week one, the Giants get drugged by the Cowboys at home. I mean, 40-0. The game looked like it could have been 80-0. Looked like the Cowboys let up the end. All of this being said here, Dallas tore apart New York. It was lovely to watch. As a Cowboys fan, since, 93, I guess, born into the fandom of Dallas Cowboys fandom, it is. It was nice to see New York not beat the Cowboys. Dallas has had their number since like 2015. I think Dak has, since he's entered the league, basically had New York Giants number. But before then, the Giants and Eli Manning, I remember winning 2 Super Bowls. I don't remember the Dallas Cowboys winning a Super Bowl. Unfortunately, it all happened before 2000. And you know what? I was 7 then. So memory's not that great at age 30 now. We'll say as well here, the Dallas Cowboys, you beat Zach Wilson and the Jets at home, like by 20. You should have done it. Like, that is, you're checking off the box. You're not, if this was an 80-10 game, I'm not really sure I would have thought much more on this. But you haven't faced anyone yet, is what I'm saying. Dallas Cowboys, you're also not facing anyone this weekend in Arizona. Like, they're the Arizona Cardinals. I just went over how they're red light, they're tanking. So, if I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan, all I'm saying is, let's face the Patriots. Then you've got a real test there against the Niners. And then Chargers. I do want to touch on the Chargers just a little bit here because, of course, I'm now a Chargers fan. Huge Chargers fan. Used to work for him. Hashtag SoFi Stadium. Use it wherever you can. I love the Los Angeles Chargers. I love the organization. Love everyone I met and worked there with. But I am just scratching my head after the first 2 games are over. Brandon Staley is a defensive head coach. And you couldn't really slow down Tyreek Hill at all. I'm not saying anyone's figured him out, because no one's figured him out. He's been traded from Kansas City to Miami. Oh, maybe the Chiefs are getting out of Tyreek before he gets a little bit older. Oh, he goes to Miami, and all of a sudden Miami just has weapons galore at the wide receiver position, Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. And also they have Raheem Mostert, who all run a sub 440. Like, they're airing the ball out. Mike McDaniel knows what he's doing with Miami. But what frustrates me as a Chargers fan is that I think the defense for the Chargers is better than the Patriots defense. I just think it is. Now, is Bill Belichick a better defensive head coach than Brandon Staley? If you can see this on YouTube, I'm rolling my eyes massively here because of course he is. It's Bill Belichick. He's the best coach ever. But the Dolphins were held to 24 points. If the Chargers had held the Dolphins to also 24 points, Chargers win. If the Chargers had stopped the Dolphins on one of their drives late in the game to open up week 1, you know what also happens? Chargers also, win. I mean, it's one of those things where the Dolphins had this at the exact moment they needed to, where they pulled off what they need to do. When you look at like a win probability chart from ESPN, it's almost all Chargers all the time. Like, all in the blue sections, it goes, it kind of goes up a little bit, dips into Miami, and comes back down to Chargers for a while. It goes back up to Miami, etc. Right? And then with, I don't know. Looks like here, 2nd and goal at Los Angeles Chargers, 9. Tagovailoa passes short right to Raheem Mostert, pushed out of bounds. That's when the Chargers had their biggest chance to win, like late in that game, which was just incredible. But I have a really tough time with that game because the Chargers just should have won it. In the day, Chargers scored more points than the Dolphins in the fourth quarter. They scored 10 to the Dolphins 9, but it really could never slow down the Dolphins. They just kept even, and they scored 13 in the second quarter, and Chargers scored 10, and that's like the game. And you'd figure with this Chargers defense, with this many weapons, got J.C. Jackson getting paid big money, but really couldn't stay in front of Tyreek Hill, but no one can. Got Joey Bosa not recording a ton of sacks on Tua Tagovailoa. Neither is Khalil Mack. And again, Brandon Staley, defensive guy. Justin Herbert, do you want to go into him for a second? Do you want to talk about it? If he needs better receivers, then I'm confused. If he needs better running backs, then I'm confused. Because it seems like he has an offensive line that's pretty darn good as well, too. But what's going on? He has 229 passing yards in the first game of the season. Okay, well, Tua had 466. Herbert's QBR this season so far is 57.2%. Now, his passing yards total in the season, second game, does go in, faces Tennessee Titans, throws the ball a lot more in that game, throws it for, 41 passes, and is 65%, but it's just not a great deal. And Kellen Moore, this Chargers offense, really has to take off. This has to be the way to win, because Brandon Staley defense has not shown through Herbert's career that that's the way to win. Herbert has the most amount of fourth quarter comebacks since he's entered the league, has most amount of fourth quarter game winning drives since he's entered the league, and he just got paid, but he got drafted 3 years ago, 2020. He's not started a full 3 seasons yet. He's 25, a lot of time left, but the Chargers got to figure out Herbert. They got to figure out what's going on here. Why are the stats just not all adding up? Why, when you throw the ball 74 times, you complete it 50 times, do you not have more than 3 touchdowns? You would figure a guy who has 534 yards passing through 2 games would have more than 3 touchdowns. Now, he's got 0 interceptions. He's not making any mistakes. He's got 35 interceptions on his career, actually, which is pretty darn good when he has 97 touchdowns. But Herbert's got to be a little bit better. The quarterback's got to be a little bit better. But, really, there's... How many times can I say the defense has to stop somebody? Because against Tennessee, you go into overtime, it's 24 all. You don't do anything that drive. Tennessee knows when to shut you down. They do it, and then all of a sudden, you know what? They walk away with the win. This, I would compare. If you've been following the podcast for a while, hopefully you have, for the CGA Tour. Love Oklahoma State. Huge Oklahoma State football fan. And the mentality on defense, especially with Jim Knowles, was bend, don't break. Get some interceptions. Get some fumbles. Get some turnovers. Bend, don't break. That seems like what the defenses are doing against the Chargers right now. Through 2 games, the Dolphins know when to wall up and really just shut down Herbert there at the end. Tennessee does as well, dare I say. Chargers should have gone down at the end of the game against Tennessee, scored a touchdown, capped it off, won it, walked away. Just didn't happen, unfortunately. Against the Dolphins, should have just been able to just go down and just score and get a field goal because they lost by 2. So the Chargers, they kicked field goal there at the end on their last drive. They had the ball in Herbert's hand, ready to go down, ready to do it, and unfortunately, still couldn't get it done. So it's tough. It's really tough. The Chargers' last scoring play against the Dolphins is a field goal. If it's a touchdown, I'm talking about a 1-1 Chargers team going into Minnesota this weekend. And then talking about that Tennessee Titans game, that one's a real bummer and a real head scratcher because in my mind, the Titans are not good. I don't think Ryan Tannehill is long for the NFL anymore. He's been in the league for quite some time. He faced off Brandon Weeden in college, who we're talking back in 2011 here. So we all should be very aware that Ryan Tannehill is not the quarterback for too much longer. Tennessee's drafted back his replacement in back-to-back seasons there. So it's not long that Tannehill has left in his career. And that's, again, I'm going back to that Chargers game against Tennessee. That's, again, where the graphs of win percentage is hugely in the Chargers' favor for a lot of the games with a couple of dips. And it just never really completely goes the way you'd want it to. Chargers, their last scoring play in regulation, field goal. If it's a touchdown, we're not talking about this. And then in overtime, 3 plays, 0 yards, 28 seconds total take off the clock, and a punt to give Tennessee the ball where they have 8 plays for 37 yards, but a field goal and win the game. They have one big pass play to their offseason acquisition, who seemed like he was available to anyone who was calling, DeAndre Hopkins, because he said he wanted to play with a good quarterback. Would have loved to see the Chargers in those negotiations there, but who knows what happened exactly. Chargers basically, Herbert pass incomplete, and I mean, you got 3 incomplete passes all in overtime for the Chargers, and they punt it. That's not great. Just not great. And then defensively, the Chargers couldn't stop the Titans enough. I mean, this is a team you're talking about with so many good guys on the defensive side of the ball that we can talk about. Derwin James, arguably the best player on the defensive side of the ball when he's healthy. He just isn't healthy all the time, but he had 11 total tackles, 7 solo. You know, he didn't really get to the quarterback at all, but oh well. Kenneth Murray, K9, out of OU. He sacked. He got all the way to him. He got all the way to Tannehill. Joey Bosa had 2 sacks. I mean, he's showing out there. He's being a big name. You've got Morgan Fox even getting a sack in here as well too. You've got just quite a few guys. Amen Ogbongaminga, shout Oklahoma State alum. He's got a tackle in the game. But it's all this to sum up here is that the Chargers defense should be a lot better at getting the quarterback, at stopping Ryan Tannehill, and just really knocking him down. And the Chargers defense should be good enough to where every single game they play, the quarterback they play against has a worse quarterback rating than Justin Herbert. That's what you would hope. You would hope that that would be the main number here you could look at and go, who had a better QBR? Who had a better rating? And QBR-wise, it's an ESPN stat. I'm not too sure exactly how it's factored, but you know what? Herbert's just not killing it. In this game against the Titans, Ryan Tannehill was sacked 5 times for negative 46 yards. Justin Herbert was sacked 3 times for negative 24 yards. Average pass, Tannehill has over 10 yards on average per completion, and he was 20 of 24 passing on the day. Herbert, 27 of 41 passing on the day. Granted, Austin Eckler did not play in the game. That could be part of the reason here why Herbert passed the ball so much. But nonetheless, it's the Tennessee team that I think I'm going to pick to win that division in the AFC South, but wouldn't shock me at all if another team rose up and did it. I think Mike Vrabel's a pretty darn good coach, and that's probably why Tennessee won. But again, if you're the Chargers, got to stop somebody. Got to stop somebody on defense, Brandon Staley. It's getting tough to be a Chargers fan here and have a defensive-minded head coach who has a lot of players defensively who should be incredibly good and just can't figure it out at the end to get all the way done. All right, well, last thing here is talking about the NFL season so far through 2 weeks and a Thursday night, I will say. Lastly, I want to get to is the Julian Assange segment. This one is for one person in particular who listens to the podcast, but it is the Julian Assange segment here. And it is for the teams who have not done anything so far, who we thought would, who, in other words, fell off or have gone dark, have gone dormant in the NFL ecosystem here. So here's what we're going to say. I did not think that we'd be sitting here on September 22nd, 2 weeks into the season, and already be looking at just a really, really, really bad Chicago Bears team. Their point differential is negative 28 on the season. They're not scoring. Justin Fields was supposedly going to do something this season. Has not seen it yet. So, really, there's not much more to this. Chicago Bears, thought they were going to be a lot better than they are. Did not think they'd be 0-2. Thought they might eke out a victory against either the Packers or against the Buccaneers, who I don't think either of those teams are juggernauts. If I do NFL power rankings here and say where do they rank in their respective conferences, I don't know if it'd be in the top 5 of either conference. I don't think it would be at all. And yet the Chicago Bears should have been able to knock off one of those two teams. They did some stuff this offseason too. They grabbed DJ Moore, a wide receiver. they try to bring in a new system at quarterback. Just Justin Fields just doesn't have it. I mean, maybe he does have it, and he's just been jockeyed around so much, and that's really the tough part here. But I don't think the Buccaneers or the Packers are going to be the top 5 in the NFC at the end of the season. One of those two teams might win their division, respectively, but I don't think I'm power ranking them in the top 5 if I'm not having to put one of them in the top 4 because they won their division, right? That's what I'm getting at. That division is pretty tough. You got the Packers, Lions, Vikings. They're 0-2 as well. Kind of see this week against the Chargers what holds up, what happens. The team, though, that I can talk about here that is the opposite of the Julian Assange, and I'm going to call them the Ted Lasso segment here. Just because Ted Lasso became a phenomenon. It was on Apple TV for a little bit, and then all of a sudden kind of came out of nowhere and just emerged onto the scene as being one of the greatest TV shows I've ever seen. I'm fully a huge Ted Lasso fan. Love the show. But the newcomer on the scene, we're going to do it as a tribute here because Ted Lasso just ended this past year. Season 3 ended. Hopefully they do a spinoff, TBD. But it's going to be the Washington Commanders. Granted, you know what? I've been talking a lot about strength of schedule here. Who have you played? Who have you not played? What's been going on this season? And I got to say, right now, the Commanders haven't really beat anyone. They've had a really, really gutsy, good comeback and then hold off against the Broncos. And then they beat the Cardinals in week 1 by not covering the spread. So, no, there's not a ton to talk about as far as the Washington Commanders just being great or being that good or really being amazing at football. I don't think those hold up. I don't think the Commanders, the Commies, whatever you want to say here, are going to really be able to just hold this one out and go undefeated or have a crazy good season. In fact, I'm going to pick them to lose this weekend at home against the Buffalo Bills. But I'm also going to pick that everyone's going to think the sky is falling if they beat the Buffalo Bills and go 3-0. And then all of a sudden we're going to be going, wait, hang on, this matchup, the Washington Commanders against the Philadelphia Eagles on October 1st. That all of a sudden should be flipped to Sunday Night Football because that's how these things go when both teams go 3-0, especially if the Eagles end up winning this weekend too. But, yeah, Commanders here, they've got the honorary Ted Lasso deal because I couldn't think of a better. It just came out of nowhere off the script. And I wanted to do something opposing to the Julian Assange segment here of the fading away into darkness. I think the Broncos could be right on that track as well here, dare I say. I think that Russell Wilson could be the next Julian Assange, where he just fades away from the public eye and we never be seen from him again. They signed Jarrett Stidham as a backup quarterback to a lot of money. $5 million a year for a backup quarterback. It's not nothing. This saying goes. And so far, the Broncos have really not played anyone great either. I don't think that I'm saying the Washington Commanders are top 5 in the NFC, and I'm definitely not saying that the Las Vegas Raiders are top 5 in the AFC if I'm doing that whole power ranking thing. And the Broncos have lost to both of those teams. Granted, by a total of 3 points, but still, can't be doing that kind of deal when I'm thinking, man, you got to be doing a little bit better than that. Got to be doing a little bit better. And then the Broncos go play out the Dolphins this weekend. This is just looking bad for the Broncos. They could easily be 0-4, or 0-3, headed into their matchup against the Bears, and really being one of these teams has to come away with a win. I don't think Sean Payton's going to tank this season at all, but would not be surprised at all if the Broncos don't have a change of quarterback and a little bit of a Julian Assange deal here before too long. With that being said, though, thank you so much for listening to the latest episode of the CGA Tour. Please follow at the CGA Tour on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram Reels, Snapchat, iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, Anchor.fm, YouTube. Where have I not said so far? Anywhere and everywhere that you listen to podcasts, really. Overall. Let's see here if I can actually go through quickly here where all of the episodes are and where are all the podcasts living at this moment in time before the end of the basically outro segment cleared here. Listen on Spotify. I think I said so. I got Spotify, iTunes, Castbox, Google Podcast, Overcast, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, and whatever other RSS feed you listen to podcasts on. So thank you as always, and we'll catch you guys again soon. Peace.